Good morning. The good news for all of you sitting up in the back is that anybody comes in after gets to sit in the front row, so that'll be good for all of them. We might clap as they come in. Okay, so good morning. I'm delighted to get us started on the annual State of the School address, and I'm going to bring you up to date on a whole variety of things, and you will notice that I'm going to move quickly and fast and cover a lot of ground. So there should be time for questions and comments. Hold your thoughts till the end of my presentation. And we do have, I hope, a whole lot of folks online. So if and when and how they have a question, we'll figure out how to get them ability to participate in the conversation. Unfortunately, I have to start with the fact that we've lost 6 faculty, 1 emeritus, or 2 emeritus this past year. Reality hits us in the post-COVID era. Each of these has been an incredible contributor to our program, our history, and our capabilities, and they certainly all will be missed. And many of them were involved in activities where we go to do something and we have to say, oops, that person's not here. So be mindful of our own fragility. I'll start out with our mission to improve global health by linking research to populations in a superb educational environment. I'll come back to the conversation about having our LCME visit and site visit preparation. They were concerned that the emphasis was too much on research, so maybe for the LCME we'll change this to improve global health by linking education to populations in a SERB research environment, but okay. It seems to me that it's one and the same. Here's the spectrum of work I'm going to concentrate on. First is our leadership advancements, if you will. So Shane has taken over as the Masters of Anesthesia Program Director. Heidi and Marcus have become Society Deans. They're both incredibly enthusiastic individuals in the education environment. I'm delighted with all 3 of their activities. They're optimistic, engaging, and incredibly creative in how they approach education programs. Mark Jackson has joined us as the Vice Dean for Graduate Education, moving up from the Cancer Center. Kelsey joining as the Registrar, and thankfully, Ron Yu will finally be on campus about a month from now. He was here last week going over some details of his transition to be chair of neurosciences, and we have big plans for him, and I think he will be terrific. I am just about to announce 3 new searches. Chair, finally, of the Department of Anatomy. That'll be an internal search, as will the director for the Center for Community Health Integration, and we will also be recruiting a new director for our simulation center at the HEC campus. We've been busy this past year with 15 endowed professorship investitures. I'm going to quickly flip through who they are, since not all of us were in attendance. Each of these is both a special accomplishment for the school and our development office. Each is highly accomplished in their specialty and area, and I can certainly tell you that every time I do an investiture, I said to myself, how come it took so long to honor this individual as a member of our faculty? A second set are here, and a third set of the 15 just in this past year. But even better than that, since I took over as dean, we've had 28 women who have been honored with an investiture as an endowed professor. And during that time period, that means that 42% of our endowed professorships have been women. That's far higher than the proportion of women who are full professors in our school. So we're doing our part to help. And it's okay with me if you come. It's okay. We announced them all. So here they are since we started, or since I started in the position, and the second page. So I think So thank you for recognizing them collectively and individually, and it's okay with me if you congratulate them individually as well. Moving on, this past year, we had 2 distinguished university professors. There were only 3 across the university, so the president has announced that he'll be a little tighter on the switch for allowing designations of distinguished university professors. He has expanded the number of faculty distinguished research awards that went to Paul, so Mitch and Jonathan and Paul were all recognized this year. We're taking applications right now for distinguished university professors, and we have some incredible candidates. Vince Monnier was the inaugural recipient of the Elsie Maillard Award, so congratulations to him on that. And you saw the cycling before we started of the many, many, many other recognition and awards that our faculty students have received over the past year. We have ramped up our interest and need to promote our faculty, so I'm game. If you see an award and you know somebody who can be nominated, including yourself, it's okay with me if you self-promote yourself and let me know. We will do our best. We've got a reasonable team. Lynn Singer does, in fact, lead our honors committee to help us both identify and then submit applicants, and we want to be recognized as much as we should. In that regard, let me just comment on Gary Schwartz's success as the new Cancer Center director. I stole his slide from the site visit for the NCI. It was after a 7-year award because of our exceptional status. It was this past September. It was incredibly well received. I still serve on a number of site visits and external advisory committees for major cancer centers in this country, and ours is better. So I'm delighted with so it's not just me talking. I look at the reviews that I receive across the country, and there are more words of outstanding and exceptional for each of the components of our center than I see at others. So I'm delighted, and it's a huge team effort. More than 80 people, faculty are involved, let alone a superb administrative team. I think the administrative team scored exceptional this year, as did the education program that Mark Jackson ran. So I said to Mark, listen, you've done exceptional twice. No other center has in the country, so why don't you come become a vice dean? So he took that job. And we just received notification about our K-12 recompetition. The K-12 is a junior faculty award for training and education in the clinical science of oncology. Remarkably, around the city, about 40% of our successful senior investigators in cancer have been trained in this program, so it's incredibly impactful. It's about a $850,000 a year award, and we just received notification of an exceptional score for that. So got to wait for funding periods, but we're optimistic on both fronts. If I move on to education, I mentioned Leo Loggia was one of the endowed professorship recipients. Let me just tell you about some of the current information about our class. You can see here the completed applications and total students entering across the 3 components of our training program, the University WR2 program, the MSTP program, and the Learner College program. We are the only school in the state to have more than 10% underrepresented groups in our class. So all those public schools that all got all that public money, whatever, we do better. So thank goodness for that, and it's, as you can see, consistent despite the Supreme Court issues. Not only that, we're the only school in the state with a brain gain, which means more of our residents stay here than grew up here in the state of Ohio. Again, there may be higher numbers of state students who come to the medical schools across the state, but more of our students stay here for residencies. And frankly, even more impactful to me is looking at the AMA 10-year review of where medical students what specialties medical students do their residencies in. We place above 85 percentile across all the schools in the country. in neurosurgery, orthopedics, ENT, ophthalmology, radiation oncology, cardiology, hem-onc, ID radiology, and pediatric subspecialties. I don't think there's another school that touches close to that. Now, at the opposite end, of course, is that our family medicine program's small, so we're going to work on that. But I think this is an astonishing achievement, frankly, for both the type of students we that are attracted here, but also the interest of our clinical departments in supporting subspecialty training in their disciplines. And so the chairs and faculty of our clinical departments in these areas really take an interest in our students, and that, I think, makes the whole program both more integrated and stronger. As I mentioned, the LCME site visit is March 3rd to 5th, and like the Cancer Center site visit, the anxiety level is going to go up from now till then. Lots and lots of preparation and correction and rehearsals. It's worth it, every bit of it. And if and when and how you're asked to participate, please do. Please be excited. We're going to take a day off February 13th, and we'll celebrate on March 6th. What's going on in medical education? Well, we all know about artificial intelligence, and a moving target is the understatement of the day and the year. But I think we're engaged. On the lower left is how you can access the artificial intelligence attributes that the university has put together in terms of ChatGPT and the like, and utilizing efforts and opportunities. We do have to be conscientious that when you go onto the web and do ChatGPT, if you upload information, that's public. If you do it behind our firewall, it's not public. So that's the difference. Amy is leading an effort to help develop questions for the part 1 of the board exam for medical students. Also mapping our curriculum, which will be important to make sure that we're both up to date and can identify for LCME what we're doing. Satish and Jake have put together a BSDP course on artificial intelligence. I was talking with Jake about this yesterday afternoon. It's incredibly well subscribed. Basically, all of our first-year PhD students take it. It certainly could be enlarged and taken by others, or even some of us. It has programming in it, and it'll continue to evolve. So that's our, if you will, our first foray in basic science to teach our students about the attributes of using machine learning, artificial intelligence, and learning how to code. So the complement to that, of course, is how it's going to be used in the clinical setting. And I think it's fair to say that none of us really know. And if you want to get some perspective on it, there are 2 editorials in this past week's New England Journal that I've referenced here. It's complicated, and we're not close to knowing how to use it well. Mark Griswold, to help us at the faculty level figure this out, has put together a session through Interactive Commons specifically for medical student educators. You can see the topics and the days. You can either come or Zoom to participate. It was very well received for the first session, and the second one's coming right up. So I'll encourage educators to be involved in getting some objective perspective on how to actually use it rather than just tinkering around all by yourself. So I mentioned Mark Jackson. Here's our master's and our PhD program. It's the largest PhD pool this past year that we've ever had, and we're in the process of getting them all placed. You can see the distribution of our total PhD students on the bottom and the number of our larger master's programs on the top. These are important aspects of our education programs, give us a lot of both halo and diversity and stepping stone. And I do remind our master's group educators that we have to make sure we know the career trajectory and the job that these kids are looking for. The PhDs are often running, but if we want to attract high quality master's students, we have to make sure we know why they're here, what we're teaching them for, and what the job's going to be when they get out. We've had a lot of conversation about finances, so I'm going to give you some very brief data about our finances. The most important thing I want to mention is that, you know, if you go to CWRU 2024 budget, you will see the entire budget published, because it has to be published for Moody's, published, and you can all look at the 140-page document, which is incredibly informative. There's a lot of footnotes and all the rest of that stuff. But if you want to know about how the university manages expenses in a reasonable amount of detail, an incredible, again, it's been audit approved, so it's who we are, and it helps you understand our finances. And my hunch is nobody in the room's ever looked at it. So here's some simple overlay stuff. So the budget of the university as a whole is basically $1.5 billion, the thousands on top. A third of that comes from tuition and other revenues, which here is research and contracts and other things that we do. And you can see that about 8%, $100 million, comes from endowment. And for major universities, that's an incredibly low number. For arts and sciences at Harvard, 46% of the budget of the school is endowment. And here it's 7%. So that's who we are in our development office and our campaign, et cetera. But in our lifetime, it will slowly get better, but not overwhelmingly so. So that's who we are. And you can see the distribution of other activities and the margin of the university at basically 1% or $15 million. Looking at the school, we're jiggered a little differently, as you can imagine. So we have a large relative tuition income, and because of the size of our both MD program, our MSA PA programs, our graduate programs, and our master's programs, our income from tuition is the third largest of any medical school in the country. We don't have the third largest research and training program of any medical school in the country. As you'll see, we're ranked around 24th or so. And for us, 35 million out of 630, so 5-ish, 6-ish% of our income comes from endowment, so actually lower than the university. And we spend it on salaries and our research programs, as you can see in the bottom. And our margin is $6 million projected for this year. So if you will, 6 of the $15 million of the university total margin comes from the School of Medicine. Now, we are recovering from a $2 million deficit from last year. We have a new financial model that we're putting in place to make sure that we operate these things as best we possibly can. But I'm going to go through a slide or two about what this means and how it impacts some of our decision making. So when I took over the position of dean, I announced that we would be slowly and continually expanding our research and tenure track faculty. We'd been in a doldrums, if you will, for financial constraints for a decade before that time. So we now believe that we should be able to recruit 16 people a year. Roughly speaking, 11 are replacements, 5 are new, so 5 additional faculty a year. Slowly but surely, we're going to increase the size of our tenure track faculty. That costs real money. You can see the amount estimated here. We also need to be self-sufficient in our renovations. We have active renovations ongoing right now with gross anatomy. We'll be doing Robbins 1 and then Robbins 4. And those are, again, real costs, as well as supporting equipment, students, especially this large BSTP group this year, and our facilities and maintenance costs. So we got to nudge all of us to just run a little harder, faster, to help maintain that ability to recruit and do the things we want to do. So we are at the research level for the research-based faculty asking a slow increment up of a couple % in the total grant coverage at CAP. We're looking hard at our post-bac programs. My sense is that our master's programs are actually remarkably good, but one real opportunity is those individuals who want master's level training before they move on to an MD or a PhD. And I think we can be more directed and provide just what those kids need, both individually and collectively, to make sure that they are incredibly well trained. I'd like to make sure that everybody we train moves on to their MD or their PhD program. And our recruitments, it's far easier if we're able to recruit folks who have some level of funding. And I'm going to spend a little bit of time on our opportunities in multi-investigator grants by looking at our centers, and I'll do that soon. And of course, our departments are going to meet their budgets. So our upward trends are real and significant, and I'm delighted with them, both research, overhead endowments, and other revenue. The challenge is that in the last couple of years, of course, costs have gone up, cost of living has gone up, so we have to make sure that our income outdoes our costs. That's the nature of a margin. And as opposed to both public universities and the rest of the schools in the university, we are so dependent on soft money. We enlarge our faculty based on our ability to conduct research, which means funded research. So even though we have a large tuition income, most of us do research. So we have to be competent in receiving that. And also unique across most medical schools in the country, there's virtually no clinical sourced income from hospitals, so I'm belligerent in my aggressive approach to not taking on a cost that really should be borne by our hospital partners. Just don't do it. Our philanthropic effort in the development office is remarkable. We upped about $6 to $8 million last year in philanthropic attainment, had 4 more endowed professorships and 14 more endowed scholarship funds, which help predominantly our medical students, but some also for our PhD students and for our first year BSDP students. You can see the total amount of scholarship fundraising and the aggressive, and I hope we can meet it, target for this coming year. In addition, our development office helps remarkably when we want to put together and submit a foundation award. This past year, 36 awards, over $100,000, a total of $13.7 million. You can see the topical areas. And again, they help both sniff out opportunities and help us with our applications. Where do we rank? Well, we are ranked at Tier 1. The U.S. News completely overhauled their approach this year because of a lot of complaints that they received. I won't get into that dialogue nor the national politics otherwise. Be that as it may, it's nice to be in Tier 1. Blue Ridge, which is a more objective NIH funding ranking, puts us at 23 amongst all medical schools, and that certainly includes our partner NIH funding at Metro, UH, and at Cleveland Clinic College of Medicine. And we're ranked 16th amongst the private medical schools. Those are the ranges that we've been in for a little while. In terms of inventions, we do pretty well. Internationally, we're ranked 38th. We, every year, are active in our faculty joining the National Academy of Inventors, and we're ranked 24th in terms of the number of intellectual property activities we've done this past year. And an international world ranking called Leiden, we're ranked 16th. How can we do better? Well, we can do better if we cite Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine more often. It turns out that only 38% of us who publish actually have an ORCID that identifies who we are, what we do, so we can improve that. And I'm going to send out a note today. I would much prefer, as with the university, if we all, in our academic, professorial, and publication activities, linked what institution we belong to. And the institution is Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine. It's not very complicated, but it's often forgotten. It's never forgotten, ever, at our peer institutions. So I'm going to move on and talk about centers and institutes. So we have 31 centers across the School of Medicine that are focused on research and education. I'm going to talk about 18 today. If I went through all 31, you'd fall asleep and walk out, so I'll get you half. They're all on our website. We have a formal process and guidance for how to be identified as a center, and what the review process is and what the recognition is. But when you meet that, you're put up on our website, you're supported through the Dean's office, and we help you with your interactions. So the centers, of course, complement, interdigitate, and aren't departments. So departments are where we teach, what our disciplines are, what our faculty appointments are. So almost all of these centers, except for the Cancer Center and the Community Health Integration Center and the Medical Education Center, are Type B centers, which means they have members, not faculty appointments, and they help us cross departments, institutions, schools. They're best when they're really transdisciplinary, bring different groups together, allowing us to participate also in education programs. And there's a bit of a nudge from the dean's office to help them move from basic to translational and new therapeutics. How do we have impact on patients and populations as our mission? So I'm going to start and whiz through. I'm going to start with our community engaged centers. Darcy Friedman leads the Sweatland Center, and her focus in a population-based interest is in understanding health through the eyes of food scarcity and food anxiety, and improving access to high-quality nutrition, and actually does this in a way to understand mapping of where food comes from, where it goes, and the impact that it has on subpopulations. Erica Trappel leads the Prevention Research Center, and she goes into the community and maps out with the community to help understand their perceptions of health, and is focused on tobacco and, again, food to intervene with programs that effectively will reduce the rates of tobacco use and improve food intake and food perceptions, especially amongst diabetic patient populations. Sherry Boland is recognized across the state for her effort in the Center for Healthcare Research and Policy, and leads a statewide effort with some support from the state's public health department in identifying individuals with unrecognized hypertension and getting them under treatment. And you can see a 3% rise in the number of individuals with well-controlled hypertension across the state. The impact of that rise may look like a small percent, but a significant number of lives will be saved. And she is really identified by the health department as the expert across the state in developing interventional support for common public health issues. More internationally is the Center for Global Health and Disease, and this is work of Chris King, looking at a new therapeutic approach to lymphatic filariasis in Papua New Guinea, and those of us who wander around without shoes on in that area will probably get that infection, so don't do it. But he has come up with a remarkable new approach to a therapeutic that remarkably decreases the risk of developing the lymphatic disease that's at that point incredibly hard to treat. So we are certainly having international impact. If I move on to our research programs that are laboratory-based and have a clinical translational aspect, I'll take one from the Cancer Center, where John Wang leads a multidisciplinary group. He's been studying PIK3CA mutations, helped discover them many, many years ago. More recently realized the effect of these mutations on glutamine metabolism in cancer cells and how they are growth promoting, and then realized that part of the growth promoting element had to do with the neutrophil response, and specifically the extracellular trap development, and identified in therapeutic management a much better response to treatment in those with a low level of net response in metastatic colon cancer. Grace McComsey leads the Clinical Translational Science Collaborative across the city and the region, and the new emphasis of those programs, especially for pilot grant applications, again is oriented towards community health, research and education, and both she offers through her review program and offers of new pilot awards in a competitive way, a whole variety of opportunities for us to be involved with community health issues. You can see some of the topics on the left-hand side, some of the research programs on the right-hand side. Very much an interplay between community needs, interventional science, and observations that show that we can improve the outcomes of local teams. And on the upper right, very successful introduction of a team science program called Atlas, with mid-career investigators participating in developing skills, again, to lead new centers and the like, to help in a cross-disciplinary way to think transformationally about scientific questions. On a completely different front, Rong Zhu leads the Center for AI and Drug Discovery, and this complicated slide is pretty simple in Rong's eye. Any of you who are involved in therapeutics should be in touch with her, because she has a knack of identifying key ways to take advantage of the huge amount of public data in a variety of sources with millions of data points, to ask simple questions. What drugs that we haven't otherwise recognized might be helpful in X disease? What combinations of drugs? I have one drug. What other drug? What are the negative inhibitory factors? What are the side effect profile issues? And even using large language models, how to design the next drug that you could then go synthesize. So she's got incredible competency in this space, and usually comes back with a lead in 3 or 4 days. So she won't take a lot of your time if you just call her up and ask her a question. Likewise, Jonathan Haynes has set up an infrastructure through the Cleveland Institute of Computational Biology, largely with university hospitals, to help university hospitals manage its own data sets of its patient portal and the EMR to ask important questions about disease from the local patient population. You can see 2 examples here, one of which is local on sepsis in our population. The other is international, as you can see, a 10-country study of Alzheimer's and looking at genetic risk scores from ancestry genomic data. So both internationally and local, he has the team to help you assess large data sets. Jonathan Karn has been the director of our CFAR for a long time. It is incredibly successful and well recognized. Now it's a partnership with the Pittsburgh CFAR called the Rust Belt Center for AIDS Research, Rust Belt for the obvious reason. They have major programs and they're currently highly involved with a HIV cure program in Uganda to both understand risks and reservoirs in that patient population, which still has a high incidence of HIV, and control is always a challenge, and they're looking at a whole variety of populations to try to understand and control that disease better. If I move to our more basic to translational groups, Bob Kirsch runs the Center for Functional Electrical Stimulation. This is a simple slide taken from his incredible group effort, now with over $35 million of funding, both from the VA and other sources, and bringing new therapeutics across our medical centers, both Metro Health, UH, and the Cleveland Clinic. And you can see the areas of activity here. I can't possibly do justice with any specific example, but we are, in my mind, right at the both at the cutting edge of this technology development, but also about the opportunity to expand it up. And I've actually had conversations with a number of the senior leaders at the hospitals, as well as Bob, about developing a independent phase 1 center so that it's easier for them to bring such technologies to patients. So any of you with an interest in neurologic disorders, from depression, either psychiatric disorders, to limb loss and spinal cord disease, be in touch. Likewise, the Center for Imaging Research, now led by Agata Exner, has some of the best technology in the world at understanding MR, ultrasound, microbubbles, therapeutics, diagnostics, and interpretation of images. So there's AI components, there's the MR fingerprinting elements. They're incredibly well funded, broad teams, and again, really ripe for even further development. They've infiltrated, as you can see here, a number of institutions, technologies, and areas of research, but they're ripe for further involvement and expansion. At the other end of the spectrum is the submicroscopic work of structural biology, led by Sudha Chakrapani. And here's just one example of being able to decipher down to the molecule level a pore that's disruptive and induces lytic cell death, which now that you understand what it looks like, you can say, okay, how do I prevent it when I want to? How do I promote it when I want to? Without a structure, you can't figure this stuff out. So again, these guys, we made huge investments in them a few years ago. I was incredibly skeptical, and if anything, we should have tripled our investment. So this is a really good group. They're at the cutting edge, and again, ready for your questions. Mitch Drum has led the Research Institute for Children's Health. He came here decades ago, interested in cystic fibrosis, helped us identify the first therapeutic, has just published in Science with a large team here, a way to deliver genes specifically to the cell of interest, which in the lung pulmonary tree isn't so easy. So how to get the gene there, how to get it activated and turned on in the right cell, not the wrong cell, obviously impacts hugely the success of potential gene therapeutics. So they've got all that stuff figured out. I would go visit with him. A new center, the Center for Mitochondrial Research and Therapeutics, we just announced this year, led by Xing Shi and Jason Mears. They have incredible competency in understanding mitochondrial function. You know, we used to think of mitochondria as sort of the energy source, and we would study energy and metabolism, and then we learned, okay, there's this thing called BCL2, and it's involved with signaling of cell death and cell proliferation. And now we're realizing there's a separate genome of the mitochondria that is involved in many degenerative disorders, both cancer, neurology, defects at birth, in children with mitochondrial dysfunction. So the opportunities to understand more about mitochondria are huge, and these guys are leading a team. They had a very, very successful seminar, day-long colloquium this past summer, and I look forward to great things with that group, one of which is Jonathan Stamler's Institute of Transformative Molecular Medicine, and the Pieper Lab. I just happened to pull out a recent observation again about mitochondria, pointing out the link of mitochondrial fusion and neurodegeneration after traumatic brain injury, so connecting those two together. Jonathan is intent on bringing, as quick as possible, high-impact discoveries to therapeutics. You can see here the Chopra Lab, which is helping us understand thirst, and Stamler's own work in nitrosylates, a completely otherwise unobserved signaling methodology, which is fundamental to cell biology. Brian Appleby leads the nation's only prion research centers funded by the CDC. Basically, this laboratory defines the rate of prion disease in the country from samples that they collect across the country every year. You can see this is older data, only taking us up to 2018, but they have the fingerprint or the thumbprint on the pulse of what's happening with neurodegenerative diseases and prions. I hope it doesn't happen, but I've certainly heard that that's one of our at-risk biologic weapons in the future, so if something were to happen, I'm glad we're here in Cleveland. And then finally, the Center for Medical Education, which is a education program. I mentioned Leah in the past. We have the first in the nation education program for medical students about the EPIC health system before they get to the clinic, so they get a background in what EPIC is about and what it's for, how it's used. As I mentioned, the AI initiative. And to her credit, she's realized that we need to upgrade our early exposure of medical students to patients, and we've decided to focus on the geriatric patient. All of us are probably aware that it's sometimes hard for physicians to take care of somebody over the age of 70, especially when they're 30 or 35. So getting it up front in the curriculum, I think, is critically important to understanding the complexity of healthcare management in our older population. So I'm going to interrupt that and shift quickly to something that I sort of enjoy doing since becoming dean, and that is to announce the Case Medal for Excellence in Health Science Innovation. And we do, in fact, have a recipient for this year. I'll start with our past recipients, which you can see here, and move on to our next recipient. So we just came from a dialogue and surprise in the Sears Tower, where I announced that Hope Barkoukas would be the recipient this year for her incredible work in nutrition as science. So I'm going to bring Hope up. So I get to put this medal on. So the shock value we had this morning over in the teaching kitchen for nutrition, we brought in her family, her department, and friends of the university to help bring us forward with this. You might ask, I've just shown you all this fancy stuff about these fancy centers. Food, what's that got to do with it? So the truth of the matter is, and I've been educated on this hugely, both by the department and by Hope, is that we really have a treasure here in our expertise in understanding the importance of health and food as linked together. And I'm going to ask Hope to give us a little bit of insight into that, so I don't have to tell you things that are wrong, because she'll do a better job than I would. But it is so critical, both as a unifier across populations and risk groups, for our students to understand ethnic food origins and utility and wellness in our food consumption. I met Hope's daughter, who said that she's a psychologist, who studied food disorders. Now, if any of you don't have a food disorder, would you please raise your hand, right? So it's incredibly consequential to all of us at different degrees. Hopefully most of us are well managed in it, but we struggle with this every day. And the more we know about food, and frankly, as far as I'm concerned, the more we study it for its biology impact and its biological phenomena in disease, not just association studies, the better. So Hope is the Jack Joseph Morton Mandel Endowed Professor in Wellness and Preventive Care, and leads the medical student Mendel pathway in wellness, which has a huge component to it in our in nutrition. The nutrition kitchen that we have brings in, I don't know, 800,000
overwhelming
students to learn about food, both food sources and food management, and how to cook. It's amazing our students don't know that, but they don't. And runs an incredibly successful department, which always keeps itself both engaged and knows how to move ahead quickly and change courses when it needs to. I wish I could tell you that we are the first people to recognize Hope for what she does, but in fact, I'm going to read you these because she won't. The 2019 Outstanding Dietetic Educator from the Nutrition Dietetics Education Professionals, a top prof, and the John S. Diekoff Graduate Award here in the school. 2016, the Professional Achievement Award from a large organization called Sports Cardiovascular and Wellness Nutrition Practice Group. So I thought I would just tickle your fancy by having Hope give us a short chat. Now, she thought she was coming up on stage to compliment what I was already talking about, so she prepared a few slides, which is the only way I could get her here. So, Hope, take over.
Thank you very much. Yes, they totally shocked me. And as I said this morning, I think that in life, both personally and professionally, success really depends on who you put in the front row of your life. Those people that will be with you when you're at your worst. You got to take the bus, the sort of analogy, or that you can take the limo. But they're also there to tell you the truth. They're not going to sugarcoat it if you have a horrible idea. And so I think that I've been really blessed in my life with an amazing family, amazing friends, and I honestly do consider my front row my faculty and staff at the department. So this isn't my award. This is the department's award as well, and so I thank you very much. And so, yes, I actually thought I was doing a food as medicine, and he was very clear. I had 5 minutes, and if I didn't take 1 second over, I was being pulled off the stage. So, very fast. And so this whole concept is really what's evolved. And essentially, it's because, incredibly, we spend the most per capita on healthcare of any country in the world, but guess what? We're not the healthiest. So now that I know that I have more than 5 minutes and 1 second, what do you think is the top vegetable consumed in this country? Oh, you guys know. French fries from McDonald's, and on any given day, about 36% of adults, and more frightening, children, have one fast food meal a day. And so diet is an extremely important component. And so this concept of food as medicine has really been embraced by both the government as well as across the board. And it really is just an umbrella term for what can we do to move the needle, to make us move towards behavior change, towards a more healthy dietary pattern. And so very quickly, there's a number of different components. All the food security programs that the government runs, when you have medically tailored groceries or meals, that just means that they are nutritionally designed to meet the needs of a particular person or group that have a specific chronic disease. And we heard about Darcy and Erica. Produce prescription programs, you're either getting free or reduced produce. The culinary medicine you'll hear about in 1 second in our teaching kitchens, and obviously the different governmental programs. So it's this huge concept. When Stan asked me what I was going to say, the scientist he immediately said, we have to wait 10 years for data. No, the data are emerging, and I don't have time to go through this, but we're seeing very specific positive clinical outcomes in terms of length of stay, degree of recidivism, all of that, as well as in food and nutrition. So this is just a huge momentum. We're very fortunate in that we do have other research other than what Stan talked about this morning with Erica and Darcy, but in the food as medicine space, I don't know where Elaine is, but congratulations on the new R01, using medically tailored groceries in a specific target population. And new, and I'm excited, Dr. Melissa Prescott, another food as medicine intervention looking at food skills. Again, moving the needle on the simple concept of doing better in terms of your dietary patterns. For those of you that haven't seen our kitchen, it is amazing. It is considered one of the best in the country, and that's where we do culinary medicine. We are not creating the next, sort of generation of Martha Stewarts. Basically, culinary medicine means you're merging the art of food and teaching about food with the science. What is the evidence? It's not just random recipes. If our president or our hierarchy could come to the classes, you would realize how much this is important. A couple weeks ago, we had a domestic student who did not know the difference between a walnut in the shell and an onion. Trust me, we need this. And so basically, we are in there and that's what we're doing. And so in the culinary medicine sphere, we talked about the pathways. Those are considered extracurricular. And the one in which I am one of the faculty leads along with Stephanie Harris, that's the Jack, Joseph, and Martin Mandel Wellness Pathway. We have over 200 students. And basically, it is culinary medicine as one piece. We have a lot in the undergrad and master's world, and then we are fortunate enough to have research. The Case Cook series are basically half semester, again, sneaking in nutrition with simple culinary skills. These classes do meet the wellness requirement for the undergrads. We have had hundreds of students in there since the beginning. The pathway that I just mentioned, I'm really proud of this. I did create this. It was a love, a passion, and it's basically to have what we call a trifecta. It's focused not only on wellness of the student as well as their future patients, but also this concept of culinary medicine. And then the last piece is what we've moved into, which is called lifestyle medicine. It means before you grab your script for anxiety, anti-anxiety, etc., you talk to the person about exercise, nutrition, emotional, social well-being, physical activity. And so we actually won a national award for this curriculum a number of years ago, and I'm really proud of that. And we're very fortunate in having research in the culinary medicine as well as the food as medicine space. In the second year M2s, the medical students in the pathway, we have under the leadership of Dr. Stephanie Harris, and she has created the program along with Ryan, culinary and lifestyle medicine, calm education, and basically going in with really tailoring it to understanding the nuances of a healthy diet for prevention of disease. It applies to all disease, and there is research involved with that. We also, if you ever want to just have a horrible day and really bring a smile on your face about what life is all about and what gives you meaning, go into the kitchen when you see the children in the DICE program, the Diabetes-Inspired Culinary Education. These are children with type 1 diabetes that are into the kitchen with their significant parent or whomever, caregiver, learning what does 50 grams of carb look like? What does that even mean? And so it's a very successful program. And so I made it, Stan, in 5 minutes, and thank you very much.
All right, well, thank you. So I have a few more items to share, and there will certainly be time for questions, so start thinking about that. So when I was putting together the slide deck for the centers, it occurred to me that I was trying to make the case for the translational aspect. So how do we get stuff out of our labs out into the public? So we do that with a concerted effort in bringing our discoveries to commercialization. As you know, the university has been doing it. I showed you the invention disclosures, the patents, et cetera, but we haven't been that efficient about getting stuff out. So Bill and Bill lead this effort. Here's the university statistics for this past year. You can see that 90% of the deals come out of the school, and 50% of the startups and invention disclosures come out of the school. And you can see some examples on the right-hand side of how we're bringing things forward for commercialization strategy. And delightfully, the university is reorganizing the BioE building into an incubator space for startup, for laboratory-based efforts. So we do, in fact, have a pathway to help our investigators and inventors bring forward with a pretty comfortable approach to going from invention disclosure to patents to license to startup company. I'll be public that as far as I'm concerned, if you want to start up a company, you should be a founder of that company because you'll benefit from that, and it'll help you stay here, which is always good. So here's some other data. How do we turn that around? So licenses, startups over the last 4 years with a modest amount, about $1.6 million of expenditures from our School of Medicine into something we call CAW, the Council of Advanced Human Health, which is our method for assessing and reviewing new opportunities and figuring out what they need to get to that pre-commercialization stage. We have been incredibly successful. That $1.6 to $2.4 million, 33 projects in the last decade, has led to over $200 million of follow-on funding, not to us, but to those startup companies with our technology, as well as numerous other foundation and government awards. Here's the newest crop, individuals that you all know who are incredibly successful entrepreneurs as full-time faculty here with very, very innovative projects, and each of them has 3 or 4 new things up their sleeve. So again, if you want to know how to do it, talk to Bill or these folks. We are intentional to help things get up and out from our own platforms. Grace McCompsey helped us update the strategic plan to include a section on clinical and translational research. I've talked a lot about that so far. So our strategic plan is about to undergo another update, if you will, over the winter months. 3 new initiatives that I want to just briefly mention. Institute for Population and Community Health, I'll tell about that in a second. I think it is time for us to spend more effort in understanding climate and the effects of climate change and climate impact on health, not just the CO2 utilization of our surgeons and our hospitals, but how climate crises impact human health. And we need to develop better programs in research and education. And I think underlying a lot of what we do is a recognition of genomics medicine and therapeutics. And we will be watching as our major hospital partners in the city start to do more and more sequencing and analytics about all of us. I suspect, frankly, that most of us will have our genomes done in the next 5 years, which will uncover a whole variety of issues that are medical health related. So we want to help our hospitals pursue that, understand our basic science and genomics of human genomics and our AI analytics technology. So I mentioned the Institute for Population and Community Health. This is an evolution of an effort we've had ongoing for the past 4 years, in which I called it a cooperative or a initiative or whatever. I finally received university approval and board approval to move ahead with an Institute for Population and Community Health. So here's what's coming. So it'll be a type B center, just like the centers I showed you, which means all of the faculty will be members and not in the institute as their primary appointment. They'll be in their school, they'll be in their department, but they'll be members of the institute. We will begin a search for a director, probably an external search. We will have involvement across all of our schools. You can see on the lower left, I've talked about many of the centers and departments that are actively involved, including our Midtown group down at East 65th Street. We will have an an executive committee with an associate director from each of the other schools in the university who participate. They all have some degree of program and community activities. We'll bring them together under one umbrella and link them also to the CTSC, the Cancer Center, which have major initiatives in this space, and the university-wide community relations program, and their link, both the education, et cetera. So for the first time, the university is putting its dime on a population community health initiative, and I'm sure it'll expand and explode in its impact in the years to come. And just to preserve the etiquette across the schools and deans, I get to lead this as the Senior Vice President for Medical Affairs, not as the Dean of the School of Medicine. So if you wonder why that term is used, it's to take care of the politic of other schools. So anyhow, I'm excited about this as a new initiative, and we'll see where it takes us. 2 other quick announcements. One, our appointment, promotion, and tenure effort at revising our guidance document is still under review with the Faculty Council, but it is being utilized at the departmental and institution level, and it'll evolve a little bit, and I think we're getting close. As you can appreciate, in this day and age, we are certainly in need for better accountability about our interaction with, especially our students. So our accountability management system portal is open. You can see how to get access to it or look it up on the web. And it allows us to quickly identify and maneuver when issues come forward from either anonymously or specifically from students or from faculty around issues of how we're treating each other fairly and equitably. Finally, homecoming is this next weekend, and I'm really delighted with two phenomenal graduates of our medical school. Richard Wolchak, who just happens to be the director of the NIEHS and received his PhD in biochemistry in 1984. I knew him for a year when he was a graduate student when I first joined the faculty, so I guess we're both of that age. And then Gary Bevan, class of 80 in the medical school, 89 in the medical school, who just happens to be the chief of space medicine operations at NASA. So these incredibly accomplished individuals will be giving lectures next week. I strongly encourage your attendance. One is here and one is over at the HEC. They're designed to occupy the activities of our homecoming crowd, but these are really two exceptional scientists. I'm glad that they graduated from our school, but I'm even more glad that we just get them back with an excuse to see them. I've interacted with both of them in the past, and they're phenomenal individuals. I'll stop there and take comments or questions. Thank you. So I mentioned on one of my slides vis-a-vis our external support that we're going to have to be more competitive than ever at the NIH, because it's likely the NIH budget will be flat to down. Whether and how that influences us, I'm not sure. So I think that's a factor. In terms of our graduate programs, is a reasonableness to think that the economy will be in pretty good shape for the next couple of years. So it's an opportunity for us to train individuals into the economy, but we also have to figure out how do we attract a student here rather than having them take a job with their existing degree. So it turns out that at tough times, when the economy is bad, more people want to go to school. Okay, so if the economy is good, there are probably less people that want to go to school, which means we have to make sure our programs are at the top edge. Okay, so those are two, if I think about the world, factors. And then I think the opportunity in these three new areas, genomics, climate, population, are huge opportunities to the upside for us. I've got one or two other things up my sleeve, and the university will be developing an approach to a capital campaign over the next 18 months, and I think it'll be an incredibly exciting time to bring in a very high expectation of philanthropic support for our university, let alone the school. So those are all big picture opportunities outside of our domain of what we individually do. In the next 3 months, the cancer center will get renewed, LCMU will get reviewed, and we'll be off and running. So. We are going to have a reception outside. It's okay with me if we
We have a question from the chat
there's
function.
a couple of questions. A question, yeah.
Yes, I have a question from the chat.
Okay.
Actually, I have two, but I'll start with the first one. In what ways is CASE going to support industry collaboration for research commercialization?
Got it. So I just had a conversation yesterday with the chair, letting me know about a individual in the department with an interest with a major biotech entity and developing a sponsored research program. So I immediately called up the senior vice president for research, and I said, can you find it and move it to the top of the pile? So we did not have that opportunity 3 or 4 years ago to say that when you take the initiative, can we help you get it done? And that's now the attitude across the university. It's certainly up to the top of our institution. So I'm confident that both we can help you get it done. We're not going to move faster than you are about your science and your link to a biotech or whatever the industry is. In terms of our own commercialization strategies, I think we actually are doing a pretty good job by the things I've shown you of how to take concepts and bring them into startups and get them to the next stage. They're always complicated, but I think we have a thoughtful approach to it and a good team to do it. So, and I think we're making more and more connections with the venture world, whether it be Google Ventures, West Coast Ventures, East Coast Ventures, and the like. So I think we're expanding our contacts and our visibility quite well. Another question?
I have two more from the chat.
All right.
One is kind of probably for Hope, but is there an opportunity as employees to take those wonderful nutrition classes?
We've actually been asked that a lot. And so we are trying to come up with a plan. Right now, we're actually using the kitchen literally every single day, and the block that's not in teaching is cleaning and, you know, the logistics of keeping a very high quality kitchen. But we are definitely, it's on our radar. So thanks for asking.
Okay, switching topics. How do we become a top 10 medical school?
Okay, so as far as I'm concerned, we are. In terms of rankings, so what do the top 10 have that we don't have, okay? First is 2 to 4 times more research funding. That's the first thing. And the only way to get there is to build faculty. So I've mentioned that we're going to increase our faculty in the school departments by 10% over the next 5 years. But likewise, we're seeing growth in the research faculty at Cleveland Clinic, at UH. So there's a reasonable likelihood over the next 5 years we'll see about a 25% increase in our overall faculty. That's not a doubling, but that conceivably, if we can outstrip our peer group, if you will, we'll move up gradually. So the realistic issue is much of this is research-based funding. And the other components of that are IP, et cetera, that all grows with the size of our faculty. In terms of our medical student program and our PhD program, I think we're doing incredibly well. As I said, in terms of how we place our students, hardly any school in the country does as well as we do. So I'm actually incredibly grateful for the environment that we have for medical education. And our PhD students, particularly, also do incredibly well, both achieving their degrees in a good period of time and going on to postdocs and commercial opportunities. That's a continually changing landscape, and I think we have to keep moving ahead with how we career help our PhD students. So those are the bigger components. And then you will see the university. As you can see, we have a new logo. We are just beginning a review of how we understand how to present ourselves from a marketing and communications vantage point. And you'll see sort of a work effort, research effort on that over the next 9 to 12 months, and then a springing out to really improve our visibility. I think that'll help a little bit, but the number that counts is our research funding. There's nothing wrong with our level of research funding given the number of faculty we have. So we could nudge up maybe 8% in terms of our current faculty level research, but to really double it takes more faculty and more space. And we're talking about both. Anybody in the room? You sat through a lot, sorry for that, but you can all come out and kibitz. There's one more question, I'll take it, or two, but otherwise. Thank you.